Gen Z hate Dave Ramsey? Well, if you stumbled upon this video, chances are you're curious about the clash between the influential idiot, financial guru, and the younger generation. I'll admit, I was curious too, so I spent a week reading articles, watching TikTok reactions. Hell, I even watched Dave's stupid show. And I found the real reason why Gen Z hates Dave Ramsey. See, it's not just about money, it's about a generational divide, a clash of ideologies. You see, Dave Ramsey isn't just seen as a dumb financial guru to Gen Z. He's a symbol of the older generation that in our eyes robbed us. You see, Gen Z looks at old man Dave as the OG of financial advice, but not the cool kind, more like the grandpa who still rocks a fanny pack and tells you to save all your money, when we all know damn well grandpa is broke as hell. And 99% of millionaires didn't get rich by saving money anyway. Gen Z and millennials need real advice, not the BS advice or scenarios that no longer exist. You want to impress Gen Z? Teach them how to juggle crazy student loans, high daycare bills, rising home and rent prices, all on the same pay you used to get in the 1960s. Dave, you old as hell. Either way, most Gen Z and millennials don't have a savings problem. We have an income problem. It's just not enough income to last us through the month. And whose fault is that? Dave, it's your generation's fault. The generation who profited off of lower wages for their kids. The generation that allowed the politicians and big businesses to destroy the economy multiple times. And side note, did you know the average age of a House of Representative is 57, followed by the senator, who's 64? They don't want to leave. And we could talk about saving and not having debt, but we both know the bigger problem is wages haven't kept up with inflation. And you old folks keep saying, work harder. Okay, Grandpa, explain to me how I should work 60 hours a week, raise a family, go to school, and have time to sleep. Oh wait, let me guess. Back in your day, you guys didn't sleep. Stop it. It's not true. And according to these fancy graphs, wages haven't kept up with productivity unless you were a CEO. Yeah, those guys continue to get paid. But with technology, this new workforce is more productive than ever, which is why we don't want to hear your old ass criticize this generation. In fact, if you want to criticize someone, Dave, look at your old ass peers, the BlackRocks, the Vanguards, the politicians, the big businesses that lobby these politicians. Ask them why they stole from us. And speaking of stealing, let's talk about how you're trying to steal the little bit of joy we have by telling us we don't deserve to have a life.
We're seeing data right now that 25% of millennials, their parents are paying for their housing in one way or another. Let me just tell you, moms and dads, not good. Not good for your little millennial. They are much better off to face some calluses, some stress, some hard times, make some hard choices, stand up and square their shoulders and be a man, be a woman, instead of a child. Coach them, cheer for them. If they're in a really hard pinch, be a safety net, but don't interfere.
See, unlike the previous generation, we have a better understanding of what we like to call self-care.
End of the day, Dave Ramsey knows what the hell he's talking about, and you as Gen Z, you're just basically complaining and you're playing the victim and not actually heeding viable advice.
If you want some self-care, Adam just did some math. You could trade in those coffees for a gym membership. Now let's talk about self-care that's actually self-care.
By the way, and just so you know, a number came out that Gen Zs are moving. The number one state they're moving to is Texas, but the number two state they're moving to is California. So one, the ones that want to save money, and they're actually the long-term thinkers, they're going to Texas. The ones that want to go into Hollywood are going to California, which maybe the numbers make sense why that generation is going there. As a young person, are you going to feel the challenges that California offers? You will, but not at the level of somebody who's in their mid-30s, married with kids, that's dealing with homeless, cost of living, schooling, private school, all this stuff. So when you're 21, 22, maybe you're going to be like, who cares? I don't have a problem with that kind of stuff. I'll go to California.
Sure, I could work 3 jobs and die of a heart attack at the age of 65, but I don't want to, Dave. You see, Dave, while you may be against the $6 latte we get, Gen Z and the millennials, I'm a millennial, We understand what makes us happy, and I'm gonna protect my happiness and mental health before I worry about some green papers with dead hypocrites on it.
Yes, I am that woman that used to be and still am in Dave Ramsey videos. I'm his daughter.
Go spend your money. Go. You don't need my permission. Now you gotta have the money to go and spend it, but you can spend it. Just because you're being smart and wise with money doesn't mean that you can't enjoy any of it. Just a friendly reminder.
See, the new generation recognizes that investing in mental health is just as important as saving for the future. YOLO, you only live once, and I think it should also mean you're only young once. So why spend your best years, your healthiest years, slaving away for a job that doesn't give a shit about you? That's fucking wrong. We don't want to finally be wealthy enough to travel after we retire. By then, we'll be too old to skydive.
What'd you think about that?
That was tight.
That was tight. All right.
Or run with alligators.
You ever been that close? Like 5 feet? Oh, everybody went back except for me. Oh, okay. That's right. Run back. Or else. Or else. Yeah.
Seriously, Dave, in 30 years, can you show me how you expect me to take a walker with me as I try to white river raft in Jamaica? Because I don't think I can bring one. And sure, doing this might mean I'm not a multi-millionaire after I retire, but it will mean that I've lived for
the nights that I can't remember, with the people that I won't forget.
I mean, who's to say we'll live past the age of retirement, Dave? See, even if we wanted to see things the way you see them, the traditional advice just doesn't work anymore. We can't buy a house outright in cash like my great-grandparents did. In fact, the average middle-class American can't buy a house at all on the average income. Back in your day, Dave, if I made an average income, I could afford a house, a vacation house, a side chick, and a side family, just on one income, delivering milk. And if my wife is watching, I'm not saying I want a side family. But, I mean, even if I did, I couldn't afford that shit.
Okay, the median wage in 1950 was $3,300 a year. And the median house cost $7,350. Double. So it took you about 2.2 years of your wages to buy a home. These days, the median wage is $70,000. Household wage is $70,000 in the U.S. and the home is $430,000. So that's 6.14 years to buy a home. So when I say that younger people are now poorer than ever, relatively speaking, yes, they are, because everything is so much more expensive. And you know, if you're making minimum wage, which by the way, minimum wage hasn't changed in like 15 years, since 2009 or something like that. If you're making something like less than $15 an hour, like there's really not going to be a shot that you can buy a house.
And it's not because my generation or Gen Z has gotten worse with money than the previous generation. In fact, it's my belief that through the internet, our generation is way more financially educated than the previous. But what good is knowing what you need to do with money if you don't have enough money to do it? I mean, I could watch 1,000 videos on how to dunk a basketball.
This is the new style. LeBron James still has.
Now, check out my dunk.
With the reverse.
Starting to take matters into his own hand, Van Horn. Now, you got to get the same from Curry Kittle.
But I'll never be able to dunk a ball unless your generation lowers the goddamn rim, at least to the same height it was when you played the financial game. So not only is your advice not relevant to this generation, but it's elementary at best. I guess that's why you call it the baby step method. You know, save $1,000 in an emergency fund, the debt snowball method, pay off your home early. All terrible advice. Now, I'm not saying that advice doesn't help people who have no financial education. I'm simply saying once you start to research the most successful people in the world, you realize that they do the opposite of what you're saying.
I was telling my mom that I wanted to get a credit card with like travel rewards, and she was like, you should ask Dave Ramsey about that. No.
Like how you said to avoid credit cards. Why? My credit card has tons of benefits, more pros and no cons, as long as I pay off my balance every month. I'm talking free stays in hotels, air travel, airport lounges. Honestly, I make money from my credit cards. I don't lose money. Not to mention the missed opportunity good debt could create when used correctly. Robert Kiyosaki bragged about being $1.2 billion in debt.
Well, in one of your YouTube videos, you actually said that you're currently $600 million in debt. No?
1.2 billion.
1.2 billion, okay.
Dave, what does he know that you don't? I'm curious. See, Dave, you never consider each individual unique financial education. In fact, you don't try to educate them at all. Sure, you listen to their situation, but you give everyone the same basic financial advice, which will produce the lowest returns ever, which is why the new and more educated generation don't listen to you.
Why do you hate Dave Ramsey? I don't hate Dave Ramsey. I just hate everything he teaches.
Or stupid and arrogant.
How old are you?
I'm 35.
Okay, cool.
See, this new generation is not afraid to get their hands dirty with a little bit of debt. If it means chasing their dreams and securing their future, to them, debt isn't just some boogeyman lurking in the shadows. It's a tool, a weapon, a means to an end. So Gen Z isn't about to use bad debt to splurge on designer shoes and a fancy vacation on borrowed cash. They're also smart enough to know when to say no, because at the end of the day, debt might be a tool, but it's also a double-edged sword. Use it wisely and you'll unlock doors to opportunities and investments. Abuse it and you'll end up drowning in a sea of financial debt faster than you can say bankruptcy. And speaking of bankruptcy, Dave, you kind of remind us of the big Wall Street jerks who always go bankrupt. They think they're so smart, even though they crash the market all the time. The same jerks who mess with GameStop and we lit their asses up for it. Remember that? That hedge fund? What's his name? Sidon Capital? I don't know. They thought they were so smart shorting GameStop until Gen Z and the millennials came through with the Robinhood app and ran the GameStop stock so goddamn high you needed binoculars to see it. Yeah, I made a ton of money on GameStop. I also find it funny that your generation calls our generation snowflakes when every time something goes wrong, you guys call Big Daddy government to bail y'all out. What happened to the old pull yourself up by your bootstrap? Here's the real facts. Most of the millennials and Gen Zs don't own a house because of the previous generation. In fact, remember when the pandemic hit? If the government, your old politicians, didn't bail you guys out, the market would have already crashed and most of that baby boomer money would have been gone. Those 401ks cut in half along with home values. And I know that's insensitive because that's some of our parents, but it's also very true. The home values going up helped boomers, but it made it impossible for our generation to buy homes, which is why I keep saying, you robbed us. And speaking of getting robbed, I mentioned earlier, the dollar is dying. So if you want to be prepared when it happens, check out what happens to your debt when the dollar dies.